I'm here today with Eoin Finn, who is a resident of Howe Sound and a member of the community grassroots group My Sea to Sky that's been doing a lot of work on the ground to raise awareness about the risks posed by proposed LNG plant near Squamish, the Woodfibre LNG plant, and other potential tanker traffic and related infrastructure. And Eoin has been making a series of presentations to municipal councils throughout and regional districts throughout the region on the Sunshine Coast and in Howe Sound, has generated a fair amount of traction here in terms of 5 different resolutions coming out of these different levels of government over the last couple of months, mostly relating to banning tanker traffic in anticipation of this LNG development. He's a former partner at KPMG. He's got a master's in international, an MBA in international business, and also a PhD in physical chemistry. So he's well positioned to talk about both some of the physical risks here from LNG tankers and some of the environmental issues, as well as the business case that's really at the center of much of the debate surrounding this issue right now. So it's my pleasure to welcome you today, Eoin.
Well, thank you, Damien.
Can you maybe talk a little bit about the economics of this, both on a broader level in terms of the LNG plant and what it means on the ground for Howe Sound and some of the choices that people may be making here with this industry?
Well, let's look at the positives first, as I'm sure a lot of people in Squamish do. And clearly, up to 100 jobs advertised by the proponent to operate this plant. Some in Vancouver, some in Squamish itself, and some at the plant, would be attractive to a 17,000 strong contingency in Squamish. That, of course, depends on whether they have the kind of qualifications to operate an LNG plant, which is currently not happening. In the larger context of the economics, when all this was proposed, and now we have 15 or 16 LNG proposals throughout the coast, as you point out, the world price in Asia for LNG was about $18 per million BTUs. That's how it's sold. That has since dropped to somewhere between 10 and 11. And everybody in the industry, at least the research I've done, says that about $10 is the break-even point at which you cannot be profitable in this business.
That's because you have to chill this gas. You have to potentially cannibalize some of that source or supply electricity from other source to turn it into liquid, put it on a tanker. You've got to burn or bleed off more of that to get it to its destination. So it's more than the $3 or $4 it costs to get it out of the ground. You're adding that extra cost, and now it's something like $10 to break even.
By the time you get it to Squamish as gas, you've got $5. It probably costs another $4 to liquefy it, store it, and ship it. And then you have to defray the capital costs, which are really high, about $1,200 a ton of LNG.
That's because these plants are billions of dollars to construct.
About $1.2 billion per million tons of capacity, and this one is 2.4 million tons. So that the world economics hasn't been helped by the fact that you've got lots of competitors from Australia, Mozambique, Papua New Guinea, and principally Australia coming online pretty soon. So everybody knew at the outset this was going to be a race to get to an Asian market, which looked like it was going to be stable. But since then, the Russians have come in and done a deal with China to pipe unliquefied gas, just straight gas, from Siberia to Beijing. And the Australian plants are coming online, and a couple of other things are threatened. Japan is the single biggest importer of LNG, mainly because of the Fukushima incident, which had them turn off 52 nuclear reactors. And they are threatening, because they can't afford this LNG at that price, to turn those back on, in which case the demand from Japan will go away. Other smaller markets include Korea and Taiwan, and the other big developing market of China looks like it's going to be satisfied in its demand by the Russian pipeline, and of course by their own development of their own shale gas formations, which are pretty extensive. Right. So the world picture for this industry looks very much boom and bust cycle, and adding that industrial capacity to BC is repeating a history. We've been there, done that before with other resource industries, which from gold mining, from our own forest industry. Adding that as a major component of our industrial strategy has its own risks. This plant, in order to be profitable, has to have a price well north of $10 and has to receive, as it looks like it's going to, the kind of benefits that these resource industries get from government. A lower price power supply from BC Hydro than we could ever achieve as residential customers. Brakes on taxes. We have announced in BC that we might charge up to 7% royalty tax on LNG, but that has not been finalized. There are subsidies.
They're able to deduct their capital costs before they start paying that.
That's on net income, which is troublesome in itself, because the way these companies are structured, they're multinationals and they can offshore and do offshore much of the profits of this thing when they sell the gas abroad.
So do you think it's possible that of that 7% that we could see nothing of that, or a smaller amount than what's being promised?
They're offshoring, or what's called transfer pricing, is a perfectly legal strategy for a multinational company. The OECD countries have worked for years to try and stamp it out because of the inequities it causes, but have not succeeded. This company has, or at least its parent companies, have a track record in offshoring profits and were recently fined by the Indonesian government for offshoring profits to the British Virgin Islands. So we have a track record here. I'm saying that it is perfectly legal to do that, but it is not equitable and does not guarantee a return for its significant investment in this industry. So the economics of LNG look particularly iffy. The economics of this one, because it's about 1/10 the size of typical world scale LNG plants, look particularly iffy. And I'm worried that in our haste to win the race to the Asian market with LNG, that we make mistakes which are going to cost us dearly in the future.
So what are some of those potential mistakes economically? Give me a sense of what the potential alternative economic model or future for Howe Sound, which was historically a fairly industrial place, but as you and others have pointed out, it is in a state of transformation in recent years. Some of the health of the inlet has been coming back ecologically, and there is a transformation alongside that economically, with sort of new opportunities that have opened up. What are some of the trade-offs that might be made and the things that would be lost from going down this reindustrialization LNG path?
If you take Squamish's view, Squamish has a working population of about 11,000. So 100, even if it is 100 in Squamish, I expect that it will be maybe 60 in Squamish, is a drop in the bucket in regard to this plant in terms of their total employment picture. Yes, there would be indirect jobs as a result of some direct manufacturing LNG jobs. But the other alternatives that might be more sympathetic to the Sound being a tourist mecca, be a recreational area for Vancouverites, and would include anything from the rec tech industry is recent in that Squamish advertises itself as the recreational capital of the world. And to enhance that, some recreational technology firms have recently set up in Squamish, as have two major universities. So the nature of Squamish is changing, and the nature of the Sound is changing, in that the old ravages of the the 19th century industrialization are slowly being wiped away and replaced by tourism and recreational technology-oriented firms. And that's a more bright and sunrise future than to be reinvesting in a step backwards into sunset industries that essentially are resource-based, add very little value to the product being ripped out of the ground and shipped out of the country, especially when it's being done by foreigners with private companies in whom there is no possibility of investment by the Canadians at all. So it's a much brighter, better future to consider a tourism, recreational technology future for Squamish than it is to consider a backward step back into the 19th century rip it and ship it economics.
And do you see it as an either-or proposition? Is it really a choice between one future or another? Can the two coexist?
Yes. What's not happened is any kind of comprehensive look at the economics of Howe Sound and to come to an agreement shared by all about what proportion of recreational, what proportion of residential, what proportion of industrial and commercial would best inhabit the Sound. That kind of planning is frustrated by the fact there's 3 regional districts here and I think up to 9 different communities, all of whom have a say in what goes on in the Sound, and that they have not been able to come together and see eye to eye. The Future of Howe Sound Society has promoted this vision for a long time, and the BC government has twice in the last 30 years started that exercise but never completed it. And so this is an opportunity to complete that, but in the meantime we have 4 or 5 major industrial projects threatening the Sound, and most people like me are fearful that what we will be doing if we concentrate on the long term is we'll suddenly wake up and find that we're banging the stable door after the horse has gone, and the Sound has returned to its industrial past.
So you're kind of looking for a deep breath here, where this headlong rush gets slowed down so that you can properly plan out the future.
Yes, and the councils, most of them are doing that, again, helped out by the Future of Howe Sound Society and some of the forums that have been held across these jurisdictions. It's just that that process needs some time, breathing room, before the work of figuring out a long-term strategy is overwhelmed by short-term projects that blow away the possibility of a balanced industrial, commercial, recreational future for Howe Sound.